Imagine starting with nothing, just a dream and a relentless belief that you could change the world. Now imagine that dream growing into an empire so powerful it would challenge the likes of Ford and General Motors, rewriting the rules of the auto industry forever. This is the story of Toyota, a brand that went from a tiny workshop in Japan to becoming the most trusted car manufacturer on the planet. So how did it all start? And what secret strategy made Toyota unstoppable? This is the untold story of Toyota. And trust me, you won't want to miss a second of it. The humble beginnings of Kichiro Toyota. Kichiro Toyota was born on June 11, 1894, into a family that was far from wealthy but deeply rooted in innovation. His father, Sakichi Toyota, was an inventor whose primary focus was on revolutionizing Japan's textile industry. Despite limited formal education, Sakichi had an innate ability to create machines that could improve efficiency and productivity. His most notable invention, the Toyota automatic loom, would eventually play a crucial role in Toyota's journey toward becoming an automotive powerhouse. But before that transformation could take place, young Kichiro had to carve his own path. Growing up in a household centered around mechanical ingenuity, Kichiro was exposed to engineering concepts from a young age. His father's relentless drive to improve existing technology instilled in him a mindset of perseverance and continuous learning. However, unlike his father, Kichiro was drawn to automobiles. While Sakichi saw textiles as the future of Japanese industry, Kichiro saw a different opportunity, one that involved machines that could transport people rather than fabrics. Determined to follow his passion, Kichiro enrolled at Tokyo Imperial University, where he pursued mechanical engineering. His time at university was pivotal, as he gained the technical expertise that would later help him lay the foundation for Toyota's automobile division. Despite excelling in his studies, his biggest lessons came not from textbooks, but from observing his father's unwavering commitment to innovation. Little did Kichiro know that his education would soon intersect with a life-changing decision that would alter the trajectory of the Toyota family legacy forever. But before Kichiro could revolutionize the automobile industry, his family had to take an unexpected detour into an entirely different field. The unexpected beginning. It may come as a surprise to many, but Toyota's origins were not rooted in car manufacturing. Instead, the company began as a textile machinery business under the leadership of Sakichi Toyota. In the early 20th century, Japan's textile industry was booming, yet it was plagued by inefficiencies. Sakichi's solution was the Toyota automatic loom, a groundbreaking invention that stopped operation whenever a thread broke. This innovation significantly reduced wasted materials and improved productivity, making it a game changer for the industry. While the automatic loom was a major success, Kichiro saw beyond textiles. He had spent years observing the rise of automobiles in Western countries and believed Japan needed its own domestic car production to reduce reliance on foreign imports. However, shifting from loom manufacturing to car manufacturing required substantial funding, money that the Toyota family did not readily have. In a bold and strategic move, Sakichi Toyota decided to sell the patent for the automatic loom to the British company Platt Brothers in 1929. This deal provided the necessary capital to explore automobile manufacturing. While many questioned the decision to part with a proven success in favor of an untested industry, Kichiro saw it as the seed money for Japan's automotive future. The gamble was enormous, but it was also the first step toward Toyota's transformation. With funding secured, Kichiro wasted no time in researching and developing cars. He traveled to Europe and the United States to study their automotive industries, carefully analyzing their production techniques and market strategies. His observations confirmed what he had long suspected. Japan was lagging far behind in automotive technology. If the country was to compete on a global scale, it needed to establish its own car manufacturing industry from the ground up. Armed with newfound knowledge and financial backing, Kichiro was ready to take the biggest gamble of his life, one that would introduce Japan to the world of automobiles. A risky gamble on an unproven market. By the early 1930s, Japan's automotive industry was virtually non-existent. American brands like Ford and General Motors dominated the market, making it difficult for a domestic automaker to establish itself. Despite these challenges, Kichiro was undeterred. In 1933, he convinced Toyota Industries to create an automobile manufacturing division, marking the official beginning of what would later become Toyota Motor Corporation. In 1936, Toyota introduced its first production vehicle, the Model A sedan. The car was heavily influenced by American designs, particularly Chrysler's DeSoto Airflow. However, Toyota faced immediate struggles. Japanese consumers were hesitant to trust a domestic automaker, and foreign competitors had already established a strong foothold. Additionally, the Japanese government was more focused on military expansion, limiting the resources available for civilian automobile production. Despite these obstacles, Toyota persisted. Kichiro believed that by refining production methods and improving efficiency, Toyota could eventually compete with Western automakers. He began implementing early versions of the Toyota production system, emphasizing waste reduction and continuous improvement. These principles would later become the backbone of Toyota's global success. However, before Toyota could truly establish itself in the auto industry, an unforeseen crisis threatened to derail everything. Just as Toyota was gaining momentum, the world was plunged into war, a conflict that would force the company to abandon its automotive ambitions in favor of military production. The collapse of Toyota. When World War II erupted, Japan shifted its focus entirely to military efforts. Toyota, like many other companies, was forced to comply with government demands. Civilian car production was halted, and Toyota was instructed to manufacture military trucks for the Imperial Japanese Army. The war years were brutal, both for Toyota as a company and for Japan as a nation. Resources were scarce, factories were repurposed for wartime needs, and the company's vision for the future was put on hold. By the time the war ended in 1945, Toyota was in a dire financial state. Japan's economy was devastated, and the demand for automobiles was virtually non-existent. To make matters worse, the Allied occupation placed strict restrictions on industrial production, making it difficult for Toyota to resume business as usual. The company teetered on the brink of bankruptcy, with many doubting whether it could ever recover. In a last-ditch effort to save the company, Toyota turned to an unlikely savior, the United States Army. During the Korean War in the early 1950s, American forces needed reliable trucks for logistical support. Toyota, having experience in military truck production, secured a contract to supply vehicles for the U.S. Army. This deal provided much-needed financial relief and allowed Toyota to keep its factories running. While the contract was a temporary lifeline, it gave Toyota the breathing room it needed to regroup and refocus. More importantly, it laid the foundation for Toyota's resurgence in the civilian automobile market. The company had survived its darkest hour, but its true breakthrough was still on the horizon. With its survival secured, Toyota was ready to shift gears and revolutionize the global auto industry, a transformation that would make it a household name around the world. Reinventing the Toyota business model. By the early 1950s, Toyota was in a precarious position. The company had survived World War II and Japan's post-war economic struggles, but it needed a new strategy to compete with global automakers, particularly American giants like Ford and General Motors. The turning point came when Toyota's leadership realized that Japan's automotive industry could not simply mimic Western production techniques. It had to innovate beyond them. This realization led to the birth of the Toyota production system, one of the most significant breakthroughs in manufacturing history. Toyota engineers and executives, including Taiichi Ohno and Eiji Toyota, studied the assembly line methods pioneered by Henry Ford. However, instead of simply copying Ford's mass production model, they identified inefficiencies and devised a more refined system. The Toyota production system focused on reducing waste, improving quality, and increasing efficiency through a methodology called lean manufacturing. Unlike traditional mass production, which emphasized building as many cars as possible and stockpiling inventory, Toyota's approach ensured that production was based on real-time demand. This strategy minimized excess costs, reduced storage needs, and enhanced product quality. One of the foundational principles of TPS was Kaizen, a philosophy centered on continuous improvement. Employees at all levels were encouraged to identify inefficiencies and propose solutions, fostering a culture of constant innovation. Unlike rigid corporate structures where only executives dictated change, Toyota empowered its workforce to refine processes and optimize performance. This bottom-up approach resulted in more efficient assembly lines, fewer defects, and a faster production cycle. The adoption of TPS was a game changer. By the late 1950s and early 1960s, Toyota was producing vehicles with higher efficiency, lower costs, and better reliability than many of its competitors. This system not only helped Toyota survive in Japan, but also positioned the company for global expansion. The impact of TPS would eventually extend far beyond Toyota, influencing manufacturers in industries ranging from electronics to aerospace. A vehicle built for any terrain. In the aftermath of World War II, Japan faced significant economic and infrastructural challenges. Roads were in poor condition, transportation was unreliable, and rebuilding the nation required durable, all-terrain vehicles that could handle the toughest conditions. Toyota recognized this demand and responded by developing a rugged, dependable off-road vehicle, the Toyota Land Cruiser. The Land Cruiser's origins can be traced back to the early 1950s, when the United States Army, stationed in Japan during the Korean War, requested a military vehicle that could handle rough terrain. Toyota answered the call by designing the Toyota Jeep BJ, which featured a powerful engine and excellent off-road capabilities. Though it initially lost the contract to Mitsubishi's licensed production of the Willys Jeep, Toyota continued refining the design, determined to create a vehicle that would set new standards for durability. By 1954, Toyota had introduced the first official Toyota Land Cruiser. It quickly gained a reputation for being nearly indestructible. Governments, military organizations, and adventurers across the world took notice, whether in the deserts of the Middle East, the jungles of South America, or the mountainous terrains of Africa. The Land Cruiser proved its worth, its ability to withstand extreme weather conditions, rough landscapes, and years of use without significant mechanical failure made it a favorite among those who required absolute reliability. The Land Cruiser was more than just a vehicle. It was a symbol of Toyota's philosophy, building cars that lasted a lifetime. While American automakers were focused on mass-producing vehicles with planned obsolescence, Toyota created a product that could endure for decades. Even today, used Land Cruisers from the 70s and 80s sell for high prices due to their legendary reliability. But while the Land Cruiser proved Toyota could dominate the off-road market, the company knew that success in passenger cars would be the key to long-term growth. The Toyota Crown. In the mid-1950s, Toyota introduced the Toyota Crown, a full-sized sedan designed to compete with Western luxury cars. This was Toyota's first serious attempt to establish itself as a global automaker. Launched in 1955, the Toyota Crown was initially designed for the Japanese market. It was a bold step forward, featuring a comfortable interior, advanced engineering, and a durable build. Unlike many American cars of the time, which prioritized size and flashy design, the Crown focused on reliability, efficiency, and practicality. By the late 1950s, Toyota sought to expand its reach beyond Japan. In 1957, Toyota made its first attempt to break into the United States market, bringing the Crown to American consumers. However, this initial expansion was met with resistance. American roads were dominated by larger, more powerful cars, and Toyota's vehicles struggled to compete in a market that valued horsepower over efficiency. Sales were slow, and Toyota was forced to reassess its approach. Although the first attempt to enter the U.S. market was a failure, it provided Toyota with valuable insights. The company learned that American consumers had different preferences and expectations. Instead of giving up, Toyota adapted, using this experience to refine its strategy. The lessons learned from the Crown's U.S. debut would later pave the way for Toyota's massive success with more strategically designed vehicles. The introduction of the Corolla. Toyota's biggest breakthrough came in 1966 with the launch of the Toyota Corolla. This compact, affordable, and fuel-efficient vehicle would become one of the best-selling cars of all time and redefine the global automobile industry. At the time, American automakers were focused on producing large sedans and muscle cars. While these vehicles were powerful and stylish, they were also inefficient, expensive to maintain, and guzzled fuel. Toyota saw an opportunity to offer something different, a car that was reliable, affordable, and practical for everyday use. The Corolla was engineered with Toyota's Kaizen philosophy in mind. Every component was optimized for durability and efficiency. The car was lightweight, easy to maintain, and incredibly fuel-efficient compared to its American competitors. More importantly, it was designed for a global audience, Toyota ensured that the Corolla could be easily adapted to different markets. From Japan to Europe to the United States, the Corolla's success was immediate. Within just a few years, it became the best-selling car in Japan. By the early 1970s, it had gained traction in North America and Europe. As gas prices surged due to the oil crisis of the 70s, consumers began looking for fuel-efficient alternatives to American gas guzzlers. The Corolla became the perfect solution. Toyota's reputation for reliability began to spread, and soon, the Corolla was outselling many established brands. But as Toyota's reputation grew, it faced its biggest test yet, a direct battle with the world's leading car manufacturers. The Toyota versus American automakers showdown. By the time the 1970s arrived, Toyota had transformed from a struggling Japanese car manufacturer into a formidable global competitor. But it was not until the oil crisis of 1973 that Toyota truly began to dominate the U.S. market. With gasoline prices skyrocketing and long lines at fuel stations, American consumers started looking for alternatives to the gas-guzzling vehicles produced by Detroit's Big Three: General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. Toyota's fuel-efficient compact cars, such as the Corolla, suddenly became the preferred choice for millions of buyers. Unlike the massive sedans and trucks dominating American roads, Toyota's smaller vehicles offered reliability, affordability, and most importantly, exceptional fuel economy. This shift caught U.S. automakers off guard. They had spent decades designing large vehicles tailored to American tastes and were unprepared for a sudden change in consumer priorities. In contrast, Toyota, along with other Japanese automakers like Honda and Nissan, had already built their reputations on small, efficient vehicles. As a result, Toyota's sales soared, and by the late 1970s, it was outselling several American brands in key markets. This success did not go unnoticed by U.S. lawmakers and industry leaders. By the early 1980s, the American automotive industry was in crisis, with thousands of layoffs and factory closures. Seeking to protect domestic car makers, the U.S. government imposed tariffs on imported Japanese vehicles. However, Toyota found a way to turn these trade restrictions into an opportunity. Instead of relying solely on imports, Toyota decided to build its own factories within the United States. In 1984, the company partnered with General Motors to open the new United Motor Manufacturing plant in California. This move allowed Toyota to bypass import restrictions, while also proving that its production methods were more efficient than those used by American automakers. The new United Motor Manufacturing plant was a game-changer. It became a model for efficiency, utilizing Toyota's lean manufacturing techniques to reduce waste and improve quality. Over the next decade, Toyota expanded its presence in the U.S. by building additional factories, creating thousands of American jobs, and solidifying its reputation as a dominant player in the automotive market. But Toyota was not satisfied with simply beating American automakers at their own game. The company had an even bigger ambition. The company also sought to make a name for itself in the world of motorsports. Toyota's expansion into motorsports. While Toyota was known for its reliability and practicality, it didn't share the high-performance reputation of brands like Ferrari, Porsche, and BMW. To change this perception, Toyota began investing heavily in motorsports. The company entered rally racing, endurance racing, and later Formula One, aiming to prove that it could build cars that were not only dependable, but also thrilling to drive. One of Toyota's first major successes in motorsports came in the late 90s with the Toyota Celica GT4. Competing in the World Rally Championship, the Celica became a dominant force, winning multiple championships and proving Toyota's engineering prowess on some of the most challenging terrains in the world. This success was followed by the Toyota Supra's participation in various endurance and touring car races, further cementing the brand's reputation in performance circles. The rise of movies and video games further cemented Toyota's impact on car culture. The Fast and the Furious franchise showcased the Toyota Supra as an icon of street racing, while the Need for Speed video game series introduced millions of players to Toyota's high-performance vehicles. This exposure helped turn models like the Supra and the MR2 into legends among car enthusiasts. Despite its successes, Toyota's venture into Formula One in the early 2000s did not yield the results the company had hoped for. After several years of heavy investment with limited victories, Toyota withdrew from the sport in 2009. However, the lessons learned from motorsports continued to influence Toyota's engineering, leading to the development of performance models such as the Lexus LFA and the Toyota GR Supra. Yet even as Toyota expanded into new markets, it remained committed to innovation, leading to one of its most important creations, the hybrid revolution. Toyota's gamble on the Prius. In 1997, Toyota introduced the Prius, the world's first mass-produced hybrid car. At the time, the concept of a gasoline-electric hybrid vehicle was met with skepticism. Many critics dismissed it as a gimmick, arguing that hybrid technology was too expensive, impractical, and unnecessary. But Toyota saw a future in which fuel efficiency and environmental concerns would shape the automotive industry. The early Prius models were not immediate bestsellers, but Toyota persisted. By the mid-2000s, rising fuel prices and growing awareness of climate change turned the Prius into a global phenomenon. Celebrities, environmentalists, and everyday drivers alike began embracing hybrid technology, and the Prius became a symbol of eco-conscious driving. The vehicle's success forced other automakers to take hybrid technology seriously, leading to the development of hybrid models from nearly every major car manufacturer. The impact of the Prius extended beyond just hybrid cars. It paved the way for the development of plug-in hybrids and fully electric vehicles. Toyota's commitment to hybrid technology eventually led to the introduction of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, such as the Toyota Mirai, showcasing the company's dedication to sustainable innovation. But even with worldwide success, Toyota was not immune to crises that threatened its very survival. The U.S. last chance. The Big Three, Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, once symbolized American innovation, strength, and economic power. However, Toyota's rise has fundamentally disrupted this dominance, leaving the U.S. auto industry in crisis. By the early 2000s, Toyota had already surpassed Ford as the second-largest automaker in the world. Then came the 2008 financial crash, a devastating blow to Detroit's auto industry. General Motors and Chrysler were forced into bankruptcy and government bailouts, while Ford barely survived by taking on massive debt. Meanwhile, Toyota, despite suffering losses, proved far more resilient. With strong cash reserves and a reputation for fuel-efficient, reliable cars, it quickly rebounded while its American rivals struggled for survival. The financial crisis exposed just how fragile the American auto industry had become. U.S. automakers had relied too heavily on gas-guzzling trucks and SUVs, while Toyota had built a stronghold with fuel-efficient sedans and hybrids like the Camry, Corolla, and Prius. When gas prices soared and consumer demand shifted, Toyota was ready, while Detroit was caught off guard. Now, as Toyota continues to dominate, Washington faces two options: negotiate or escalate. Backing down and allowing Toyota's market share to grow even further would be politically disastrous. It would mean conceding to a future where Japanese and other foreign automakers dictate global car production. But pushing forward with aggressive trade measures, such as new tariffs on Japanese vehicles, could backfire, triggering supply chain disruptions, higher vehicle prices, and retaliation from Japan and other allies. The pressure on the U.S. government to act is immense. American auto workers fear job losses. Unions are demanding stronger protectionist policies. And economic strategists warn that if Toyota continues its dominance, it could reshape the entire balance of power in the auto industry. But this is about more than just cars. Toyota's success is a symbol of a much larger shift in the global economy, one that could redefine economic superpowers for the next century. Is this the end of U.S. economic dominance? For over a century, the United States has been the epicenter of the global auto industry. Henry Ford revolutionized car manufacturing. Detroit became the motor capital of the world, and American brands like Chevrolet and Dodge became household names. But today, the script has flipped. Toyota has not only overtaken U.S. automakers in sales, efficiency, and quality, but it has also set the pace for the future of transportation. While Ford and General Motors are playing catch-up, Toyota is leading the charge in hydrogen fuel cell technology, hybrid innovations, and next-generation electric vehicles. The biggest advantage Toyota holds is its long-term strategic planning. Unlike American automakers, which often make short-term decisions based on quarterly profits, Toyota takes a decades-long approach. It invests in future technologies, sustainable energy solutions, and global supply chain efficiency, positioning itself as an industry leader for years to come. The world is watching. If Washington fails to curb Toyota's dominance, it could mark the beginning of a broader decline in American industrial and economic influence. The question is not just whether Toyota will surpass U.S. automakers. It already has. The real question is whether this is a sign of America's economic decline on the global stage. But while the U.S. struggles to maintain its position, other countries are seizing this opportunity to strengthen their own economies, and this could power shift lead to something far worse. An economic crisis that disrupts the global financial system. The unthinkable. For years, economists have warned that escalating trade wars, declining industrial competitiveness, and supply chain disruptions could push the world toward a financial crisis. If Toyota's dominance continues unchecked, it could trigger a series of economic consequences that extend far beyond the auto industry. One immediate risk is a banking crisis tied to the auto sector. The U.S. auto industry supports millions of jobs and relies on massive loans, leasing programs, and financial backing from major banks. If Toyota continues to erode U.S. market share, it could lead to a collapse in auto financing, job losses, and severe economic downturns in cities that rely on car manufacturing. A prolonged trade war could also lead to a global recession. If the U.S. imposes harsh tariffs on Toyota, it could disrupt Japan's economy, trigger retaliatory trade restrictions, and cause instability in financial markets. The interconnection of global trade means that an economic downturn in one region can quickly spread worldwide. And then there's the wild card: consumer confidence. If American consumers feel the economy is unstable, whether due to rising car prices, job losses, or financial instability, they will spend less, invest less, and save more. This cycle of reduced spending could accelerate a downturn that affects industries far beyond automobiles. The world is at a crossroads. Will global leaders find a way to stabilize trade relations and prevent an economic meltdown? Or are we heading toward a period of financial chaos, rising tensions, and irreversible damage to the global economy? Let us know your thoughts in the comment below.